Terry Barber is a best-selling author and founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Jesse Romero is a retired law enforcement officer, a former kickboxing champion with a master's degree in theology. And together, they share a passion for evangelization and PhDs in common sense. You're listening to The Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. To join the show, call 888-526-2151. Here's Terry and Jesse.
If you suffer from low-energy Catholicism, tune into the Terry and Jesse Show. We'll fix that problem.
Real quick.
Hey, did you hear about the act of injustice? I mean, that's the best way I can say it. David Daleiden, a young hero. And by the way, Terry and myself have been calling him a young hero
from the beginning.
When most people were kind of separating themselves from him. Many people, even in the Catholic Church. Terry and me, from day one, we saw something special in this young man that was ready to take on the worst culture of death organization, Planned Parenthood. And again, we haven't changed our tune. Nope. We're singing the same tune. He's still an incredible hero and a role model for today's Catholics. Well, I don't know if you realize that he's being charged by because of the secret videos that he did with Planned Parenthood, or that he videoed. They're charging him with 15 felonies. That's right. Is this microphone on?
For what?
And exactly. Here's the point. Okay, the media call him an anti-abortion activist. That's the media spin. The Sacramento Bee actually calls him that. No, he's not an anti-abortion. We as Catholics, we're not anti-anything. We're pro. We're pro-life. And so David Daleiden, he was joined at a rally in Sacramento, Planned Parenthood. We want you to hear him in his own words. Then we'll give you our perspective.
This really cruel paradox at the heart of baby parts trafficking, which is that on the one hand, the baby fetus is not considered, their humanity is not considered to be fully equal enough to our own in order to be completely protected by law and in order to be protected from being killed by abortion. But at the same time, it's precisely that humanity that is equal to and identical to our own that makes them so valuable for scientific experimentation. Thank you. And I will just say, as my commitment to you, I am not a normal defendant in a lawsuit. My lawyers will tell you I'm a highly litigious person. I feed on the energy of the courtroom. I should have been a lawyer in a different life, probably. And I promise you, we're never going to settle with Planned Parenthood or STEM Express or the abortion industry. We're going to take it all the way into the courtroom, and it's going to be the biggest mistake they've ever made bringing these lawsuits, because it will bring their entire baby parts program out into the light of the law and into the courtroom, which is exactly where
Okay.
Wow. Amen, brother.
Let me jump in there. David Daleiden's being charged. This solid Catholic Christian young adult is being charged with 15 felony charges. And guess who they're being brought up by? By Attorney General Xavier Becerra. Okay? By the way, in case you don't remember, Xavier Becerra's seat has been left open. And the person that's running for that seat, one of 26 people named Mark Padilla, we had him on the show last week. Mark Padilla is about as pro-life as you can get.
That's right.
But Xavier Becerra, he's the Attorney General for California now. He's the one that's bringing up David on these charges and his organization, the Center for Medical Progress. And he basically, Xavier Becerra, the Attorney General, argues it this way. He says, the right to privacy is the cornerstone of California's Constitution and a right that is foundational in a free democratic society. And he says we will not tolerate the criminal recording of confidential conversations. Here's the only thing I have to say, and I'll flip it over to Terry. It's funny when a Catholic or a good Protestant Christian or somebody that has a traditional worldview, when they exercise their First Amendment rights, all of a sudden they find criminal charges against them. But this happens all the time with people that are liberal, those on the left, those people that have a secular humanist worldview. And guess what? You know what you hear when they do it? Crickets.
I just want to add one thing about David. He would go to church about 20 miles away from where I'm standing right now in Guasti, California. And he was a very traditional Catholic there. I remember him going to the traditional Mass. He has a great love for Our Lady of Fatima. So this is a young man who's spiritually well-founded in his faith. So he's fighting something, not just, he's not just fighting the Attorney General of California, but I'm convinced that, and I'll be honest with you, you can say, Terry, there you go again. I'm going to say there's a spiritual war. The devil would love to see this guy shut up, right? He'd put in bars because then he doesn't do what he's doing to protect unborn babies. I'm convinced abortion and the demonic activity are together in this. And so I want to ask all our listeners to pray for David. Pray that he has the perseverance to go through this, because without spirituality, he will fall. And because he has a great love for Jesus and the Eucharist and Our Lady, I'm convinced he's going to take it all the way. That's my take, Jess.
By the way, this prosecution started against David. It started under Attorney General Kamala Harris. And guess what? Now she's a U.S. Senator of California. And now Xavier Becerra took over as Attorney General. Now he continued the prosecution of this good young adult Catholic. So, what did he do? Top law enforcement officers went to his apartment a couple of weeks ago, and they basically took all the video footage of Planned Parenthood's criminal trade in aborted baby parts. And David maintains, he says, this is my First Amendment work product. Here's the good news. Here's the silver lining in all of this, is that David was also prosecuted in Texas last year. And guess what? All the charges were dropped.
I love it.
He's also been involved in several civil lawsuits, and nothing has stuck. In other words, just like we have fake news today, we have fake lawsuits being promoted by the culture of death. And guess what? Thanks be to God. So far, David is batting 100%. Let's keep him in prayer. And remember, when it comes to voting, remember these people that are prosecuting him. Remember what party they're from. That's all I can tell you, because they're going after one of our young luminaries and bright lights of the Catholic Church today.
Let me give you what Planned Parenthood's position is on this from Mary Alice Carter, a spokeswoman for Planned Parenthood Federation of America, said the organization has done nothing wrong, and only people who broke the law are behind fraudulent tapes. Wow. I mean, are you kidding me? That's, what's so amazing about this? Think about this, folks. Just the whole issue of abortion. You remember after World War II, and we had the court cases with the people who did all kinds of terrible things in the concentration camps, like infanticide, killing unborn babies? Yeah, remember that? And we said that was horrible. Let me ask you, what's changed? 70 years? Same thing's happening right now, but now we're saying it's okay. I'm sorry, I had to say it, because it's pathetic that we're actually having a group that says they're doing nothing wrong, killing unborn babies and selling their parts. Is this microphone on? Have we gone that far? All I can say here is the Terry and Jesse Show. We're not going to compromise one iota. We're going to continue to speak for the unborn. That's my take.
We stand with David like we've done from day one.
Yep.
And David, this is what he responds to all these bogus lawsuits, these fake lawsuits against David. And these are just political attacks on him because he's pro-life. That's all this is, okay? He said this: we look forward to showing the entire world in a court of law what is on our yet unreleased videotapes of Planned Parenthood's criminal baby body parts enterprise in vindication of the First Amendment rights of all. You know what? It's this is sad to say, but abortion seems to be the golden calf for the secular humanists in this country. And let's just be honest. I'm just going to make a factual statement. It seems to be the golden calf, and it seems to be that Frodo's golden ring for the Democrat Party in California. And abortion seems to be a sacrament, something very sacrosanct for the culture of death in all 50 states. This is sad, and we got to fight against it spiritually and in the voting booth.
Absolutely. And folks, I want to encourage you with Holy Week coming up to prepare for Easter because we're going to carry the cross in this life. That's just part. Without Good Friday, there's no Easter Sunday. Many of you have the Meditations on the Passion of Christ by Doug Barry with Scott Hahn, Father Bill Casey, and Tim Staples. This 1-hour DVD will make your Lent a powerful experience for Passion Week for the Easter Triduum. I'm giving it away. Also, if you want to get that and get any of the other Lenten stuff, just call 877-526-2151. But Jesse, I'm going to make an announcement. I said yesterday I have an idea, and the idea is we're putting together Catholic care packets. How many of you listening right now have a relative or friend that's left the church? Almost everybody's going to raise their hand. So what did I come up with? a Catholic care package with about $100 worth of CDs and DVDs that is going to be sent to your brother, your sister, your relative, friend, but they're not going to know you sent it. And you send it to them, and I guarantee after almost 40 years of doing what I'm doing, many times people come back because they hear a CD by Scott Hahn or they hear a Fulton Sheen material CD, and they go, wow, that's powerful, because they don't have to defend themselves. If you talk to them directly, they don't want to hear it from you, Mike, Mary, your mom, Dad. So send them the Catholic Care Package. Doesn't cost hardly anything to send it, but it shows that you care for your brother or your sister who's away from the church. Call 877-526-2151. And those who called yesterday with Dr. Ed Maza about the Crusades, I have to tell you, hundreds of people called. Hopefully we got everybody, but if you still want to get Dr. Maza's DVD on the Crusades and Inquisition, you're welcome to call 877-526-2151. And by the way, Jess Romero will be here May 6th for the marijuana conference that's coming up. We're filling up, so if you want to go, and this is the issue. I don't know of anybody in the country who's doing what Jesse's doing with his book on the problems of marijuana. So if you want to come, call 877-526-2151. And by the way, if you want to meet Dr. Ed Maza, he'll be at the office here at the Sacred Heart Chapel Saturday for the Call to Holiness Conference. Jess, go ahead.
We got a good news story next. You don't want to switch the dial.
Yep, that's a great one.
There is an amazing young woman we're going to profile on the next segment. Very inspirational. It goes to show you that there is hope with
Amen.
the young people. If you want hope, tune in. Don't change it. The next segment, we're going to give you a whole bucket full of hope. Don't change that dial.
We'll be right back.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
Full Contact Catholicism, your spiritual fitness trainers. I got 2 emails from avid radio listeners. The first one is this: Terry and Jesse, what do you pray when you do a holy hour?
Oh, yeah.
Good question.
Excellent question.
You can there is no liturgical form for the holy hour. You can pray anything you desire. The Holy Rosary, the Divine Mercy. You can just sit there and contemplate on the Lord. You can do the traditional prayers of the church in a prayer book. You can do healing prayers, charismatic healing prayers. You can do spiritual warfare deliverance prayers. You can read the Bible. Read the Bible, Lectio Divina style. You can read the Divine Office. Anything is allowed. The most important thing is just get there. And as Jesus Christ says, can't you spend an hour with me?
I'm going to add one more thought from St. John Vianney. They asked a question of an old man. He says, what do you do? What do you say when you're making your holy hour? And the old man says, well, I look at him and he looks at me. The very fact of silence, we live in a culture where silence is not appreciated. Everywhere we go, there's noise, noise, noise. So part of that holy hour, I want to encourage, whether you're going to pray your rosary or divine office, whatever you're praying, have a portion of that holy hour with silence and asking the Lord to speak to you in silence, because that's so important in our culture.
Second email, Dear Terry and Jesse, I have lots of people that use 4-letter words, the F word, the S word, the H word, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, I'll go right to what does the church teach? He says, I used to cuss a lot as well until I started listening to Catholic radio. He says, what does the church teach on these specific words? Is it wrong? Am I exaggerating? Good question. Okay. And welcome. And I welcome you back to the church. And it's good. Looks like he wants to get well formed, and you're listening to the right radio station. All of these words that you alluded to, they're all these words are known as profanity or vulgarity or curse words. We also know, I remember from doing an interview with a Satanist, Deborah Lipsky, who's now a Catholic. She says curse words attract demons. Prayers repel demons. Curse words attract them.
Okay.
And also from a biblical point of view, Jesus Christ warns us about whatever comes out of our mouth. He says in Matthew chapter 12, verse 36 and 37, Jesus says this, And whoever says a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven. No, here it is. Sorry about that. And I tell you, on the day of judgment, men will render account for every careless word they utter. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned.
And I want to give a little advice. When you're tempted to say bad words, think that living in the presence of God, that God is with you, your guardian angel is with you. Ask the question, would our Lord want me to say that? Obviously not. So the key, and this is just what I tell people who have a foul mouth. Many of them, I'll be honest with you, they come from the military. Many of the guys come out of the military, and it's like, it's not, they just come out with F, saying this and that, and F, everything's a F word. And so I just tell them, I say, time out. You think that's pleasing God or not? No, it's offensive, right? So keep your presence of God in your mind. Make sure that you're realizing that your guardian angel is with you, and use the language that God would want you to use. And so I get it. Sometimes you fail because of maybe you hit a nail on your finger, or something hits your foot and you say something. I'm going to tell people, when you go to confession, repeat those things, because you want the graces to overcome. You want your language to be the language of building people up and of godly language, because in our world right now, that's what's going to attract people to come to Christ. I know people have said to me, "You're a Catholic?" They say that to people, say, "You sure don't act like a Catholic." I can't tell them, you act like everybody else. See, here's the point about language. People pick up on it. I know I get that a lot when I'm with guys and they realize I'm not cussing. And then I talk to them in a more dignified, godly way. I say, "God bless you." That changes the whole atmosphere. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about using a foul language. It's a bad example at best.
Let me give you one more Bible verse, and we'll go into the good news topic. In Colossians 4:6, the Bible tells us about speaking properly. It says, "Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer everyone." That's in Colossians 4:6. What's the good news?
Oh, I can't wait.
Have you heard about Miss North Dakota?
I love it.
Miss North Dakota, 20-year-old by the name of Macy Christensen. She ran for Miss America, and she basically said that the reason she was going to run for Miss America, she says, "If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for God." And so this former Miss America contestant, Miss North Dakota, practicing Catholic. In fact, I saw her on her website with ashes on her forehead.
I love it.
It was so amazing. She's traveling around the country now, speaking to schools and advocating against drunk driving. Apparently, she had one of her brothers was involved in a drunk driving accident, and this really affected her and the family. So she takes advantage of using her status to promote goodness and to promote truth. She also recently testified before the North Dakota State Legislature and thanked them for defending life and the lives of the preborn female babies in the womb. So she's taking on these unpopular issues, and she says that she's been shaped, her pro-life views and her view on life has been shaped by her Catholic faith. And she's just, in my book, she's just a very inspirational young woman that definitely gets it and has a well-formed conscience.
And it's so inspiring. You know, I love what she said. A baby should feel safest within its mother's womb. But there are so many babies being killed every day in that safe place, she said. I just think that it's nice to hear a young person getting it, because us older folks are so callous about abortion. And I love that she's taking advantage of her notoriety and her beauty. Is the apostolate of beauty. Yes, she's out there getting... People are going to listen to her, Jesse, because you know what? An old guy, bald-headed old man like me, and I said the same thing. You know what they'd say? Sit down. But you get a beautiful girl to say this? I'm telling you, man, it's the delivery. It's the messenger. That's why I joke, Jess, I've got a face for radio, brother. But God bless this young lady. Let's pray that she continues to have a pro-life view for the rest of her life.
It's funny when I do the radio show with my partner Terry.
Yeah.
After the show, I feel like I've done about 200 sit-ups. Because my stomach is constricted the whole time. He makes me laugh, and he doesn't even intend to do it. Hey, let's go to the next topic.
Yeah, let's go next.
There's a good article. It's called "There's Only One Way Out of Poverty." So we ask ourselves, what's the best way to help poor people escape poverty? Now, the article says, let's agree on this. Both progressives and conservatives believe that the government has a moral obligation to help those who, through unfortunate circumstances, can't help themselves. Definitely agree with that as a Catholic. Somebody coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan without arms or legs, hey, let's help them. An old person, hey, let's help them. A widow, let's help them. An orphan, let's help them. We definitely agree with this. Now, there's a book written by Arthur Brooks from the Brookington Institute. The book's called What Really Cares. And in it, he documents, he shows statistically that people that go to church and people that have more traditional values give more to charity and philanthropy than people who have a more liberal worldview. And so, again, that's why faith is good, because faith makes people generous. Faith makes people giving. And this has been documented in a book. People of faith give more to charitable organizations and philanthropy than people who are secular humanists.
And you know, Jesse, all of this documentation is on our Twitter account or at thecatholicrc.org. All that's there. When we come back from a break, I promise I'm going to tell you a story about Mother Teresa and how she puts people that are accountable, how she calls accountability for those who don't follow the rules. And what I mean by that is, you're going to say, well, that was hard, but this is Saint Mother Teresa doing this. My wife was up in San Francisco, here's the teaser, for a come see with Mother Teresa, and she witnessed something that I'm going to share after the break. But before we break real quick, don't forget I'm giving away the Meditations on the Passion of Christ, because Holy Week's coming up soon by it's by Doug Barry, but also Scott Hahn will be on it, on his take on the Passion, Father Bill Casey, Tim Staples, and much, much more. It's an amazing DVD. It's free. I'm just asking you to help with the shipping. Also, I mentioned earlier, if you have a relative or a friend that's left the church, for 39 years, that's all I've been doing is trying to bring fallen away Catholics. My brother Jesse, too. Between the two of us, it's almost half a century or more, probably 70 years. But here's what I'm doing. A Catholic care package mysteriously being sent to your relative or friend. All these good CDs, these DVDs that I give away. I want your brother, your sister to come back home. A lot of times they'll come home if they can do it where they don't have somebody looking at them and saying, hey, why aren't you practicing the faith? Why haven't you gone to confession? They don't want to hear that. But if they hear a Fulton Sheen or Scott Hahn CD, this could be instrumental in bringing them back. And I need you, the concerned person who loves them so much, to send the Catholic gift package. If you want more information on it, call 877-526-2151. And don't forget, the Call to Holiness Conference is coming up this Saturday, April 1st. Dr. Mazza, who was on yesterday, talking about the Crusades and all that good stuff. Our phones went off the hook yesterday. If you still want to get his DVD on the Crusades, you go ahead and call 877-526-2151. Jesse, you've been at a parish every night. Where are you going to be tonight? Gosh, I don't know, right?
Tonight is the only night I have off, but I'm going to be taking off tomorrow for 3 days to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, speaking at a men's conference, and then speaking out there on Sunday night as well. So I'm going to relax tonight, Terry, and I'm going to enjoy myself and probably get some exercise, have a good dinner.
Good, man.
And I'm going to go to confession. Me and my wife said, our date tonight, me and my wife are going on a date.
I love it.
We're going to the Sacrament of Confession tonight as a date, and I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Don't forget the ice cream after the confession, brother. Folks, You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. If you want to get that CD or DVD, Meditations on the Passion, amazing DVD. It'll help you in your Holy Week. Call 877-526-2151. When we come back, the next segment, I've got a story about Mother Teresa you won't want to miss. Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
This is Bishop David O'Connell, and you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
The Lord is gracious and merciful, slow to anger and of great kindness. Psalm 145. Amen. Today's responsorial psalm. It's good to read the daily Mass readings if you can't get to daily Mass. You know why? Because the daily Mass readings is more important than breakfast. That's soul food.
Fact. Amen.
Let's continue talking about poverty in America. Ever since President Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty programs really came online back in 1966, guess what? Our government has spent over $20 trillion on poverty relief programs.
I'm sorry, Jesse, wait a minute. You said $20 trillion. That's the amount of the debt our country has. Is that correct, or did you make a mistake?
Nope, $20 trillion.
Okay, go ahead.
And by the way, as you said, that's the current size of the U.S. debt. And guess what? The needle has barely moved. We've pumped in so much money into poverty programs, we've barely moved the needles. You know, when you look at people in America, in our country, and people that, poor people in America, you can't compare them to poor people in third world countries. Poor people in America have cell phones. Poor people in America have air conditioners, flat screen TVs, computers, have a car. And the fact of the matter is that thanks to the overall, healthcare improvements in America in general, people live longer in America, even poor people. But here's the issue. Our goal shouldn't be just to make poverty less miserable for people. Our goal should be to make poverty escapable. And that's where we have an argument in this country. Many progressives offer a straightforward solution. They want to put more money into poverty programs. And they believe that we need to transfer more wealth through government taxation from people who have money to people who don't. But this is income inequality. And people that have a more traditional conservative worldview, their answer is this. How do you define success? Well, you define success by getting people off of the government dole, not by how many people are enrolled in government programs. Success is getting people off the government dole and to make them self-sufficient, to give them dignity, to give them that inclination to work for themselves and to bring a paycheck home. Government assistance, that doesn't lead to what I would call a good view of yourself. In other words, every single person wants to know that they're giving something to society, that they're providing for their family. And when you just sit at home, scratching your belly, waiting for your next paycheck and watching your flat screen TV, this doesn't do anything to lift you up out of poverty.
Well said. I know an old statement says, teach a man how to fish and feed him for life, or just give him a fish for a day and feed him. I'm going to be honest with you, and brutally honest. I've got 4 kids. When they were young, they had to work, okay? I'll never forget my own dad. When I got my first check working, I photocopied it and put it in copy, and I was so proud of that check because I earned that money. Now, Jesse just made an analogy, and I'm going to be honest with you. There are a lot of young men in their 20s who are sitting at home when they could be working. I know that because I run into them at conferences, and the parents, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong. How many people have come to you, brother, and said, my son is at home, but he's not working, but he smokes marijuana. He just kind of sits at home and sits on the computer, and I can't get him motivated to go out and work. Well, I got to tell you.
Every day I get that phone call or I get that conversation live. Every day.
Yeah, and so here's my point. We have to have a dignity. Every person, work is good for people. And so I get it when people can't work. Like Jesse mentioned the analogy, the guy got his legs shot off. He's got to be rehabilitated and do some other thing with his time, maybe making outbound calls or keeping busy. Because I can tell you, this country that we're living in right now, this is what the guy said, and I agree with him. He said, this is how, what free money leads to is the disastrous decisions we need for discipline. It's eliminated. There's no motivation not to gamble, not to widely fund every special interest group. Here's what happens when it's not your money. You spend it and you don't even care because you know you got another check coming for free. That's wrong. And if you agree or disagree, I see the lines are all busy coming in. People want to talk about this. But I don't say this out of condemning people. I'm just saying that we're setting them free when we give them a job. Let me give you one last story and I'll throw it back to Jesse. I mentioned at the break, my wife went to go see Mother Teresa's order as a come see. She thought maybe she wanted to be a missionary of charity. Thanks be to God she wasn't. I would have never married her, right? But she told me that Mother actually had tough love. They had a house for unwed mothers. And when these unwed mothers came in, they took care of their needs, but they had discipline. They had to have come in for prayer. They had to be in on a curfew hour. And if they didn't agree with the agreement of all the rules and regulations that mother was set in, she would put the person's bags out on the porch if they didn't come back by 9 o'clock. And my wife, she said, "What?" At first she thought, that's really mean. Then she realized, no, that's tough love. They're getting the message. And here's the problem. We've got too much false compassion for people who can work and should work, and we just say, poor Johnny, poor Mikey, just send him a check. He'll be okay. That's just plain wrong. That's my take, Jess.
Arthur Brooks says it this way. Everything that Terry said, he says it this way, okay? Mm-hmm. When you see 60% more people on food stamps after the recession than we had before it started, that's not success, that's failure. He says, you see, conservatives believe that simply giving people money doesn't help them escape poverty. On the contrary, it keeps them locked into poverty. Getting things without working for them is a very hard habit to break, so much so that it can become a way of life. According to research, earning your way out of poverty is much more empowering than being supported by a variety of government programs, which do little more than maintain people in their poverty. Now, this doesn't mean that the government doesn't have, or private charities doesn't have a role to play in people's lives. Obviously, there's reasons, orphans, widows, we get it. People coming back that are injured from war. But I'll tell you one thing. Government and private charities should require people to work in exchange for social assistance. When you do this, you help people in two ways. First, through welfare, we're helping them meet their immediate material needs. And second, when you have them work for the welfare, we're helping them earn their own success. And this is the key to a fulfilling and dignified life.
Before we go to Joe and Salinas, I just want to make a note. If you go on the internet and look for the state of Maine, they made a policy that people had to work for the welfare checks, and 70% of their welfare people went off the rolls because they went back to work. You see, the point of it is we all want the easy way out. I'm included, but I know I have a flaw in my human nature that says, if you're going to give it to me for free and I don't have to work for it, I'll take it for free. Well, that's our culture, unfortunately. Joe in Salinas, California, you're on the air with Terry and Jesse Romero.
God bless you, and you're absolutely right. You know, we're all subject to that, or we all can fall for that. It gets easier and easier, and we get to liking it, and then our mind changes.
Amen.
But I was praying out here in front of Planned Parenthood.
Good job, Joe. Excellent.
And worked my way down the block. Went to catering trucks. And had my cross, had my sign, Abortion Kills Children, started talking to them about how they got started in the catering trucks. They started in the fields, worked into construction, now this, and I started joking with them. I go, "Oh, you're a rich man." No, I'm not rich. I go, "Well, I see you, people are going to say you got a catering truck, you must be rich." No, I started small. I go, but they didn't see it. And that's, too many people hate conservatives because they only see what you have, and they don't see how you got there. And he told me he had even gotten his truck stolen in Mexico when he went back home because, they thought he was rich, and so they could steal his thing.
No surprise. Joe, thank you for that comment. And thank you for your service at Planned Parenthood praying. So I appreciate all the good work you're doing, Joe, and we'll be continuing to work.
May I ask you?
Absolutely, Joe.
May I ask you?
Sure. Hit it, man. Hit it.
I'm right here next to a subsidized housing project. They call it low-income housing project.
Section 8. Section 8.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they build the buildings, and people, live in the buildings.
Sure.
But, and it sounds good, and maybe it is good. But one guy a couple of days ago who lives there, he told me it drugs all the time at night, in and out. And I know I saw a documentary years ago about in Chicago, how bad it is. It gets infested with drugs and crime. And how do you control that? It's hard enough to control in the private sector, but in the government housing, where anything goes, that's leading to sin and crime, and that can't be good.
Of course it is. Joe, I got to go because we got a break, but I'll just say one thing real quick, and then I'll throw it back to Jesse, and that is when you have a lot of free time and you're not working, yeah, that's when you get into trouble. Drugs, all kinds of bad things happen. So I agree. Again, we have an approach that says give people a dignity. That's my approach. I think that's what the church teaches. And later we'll talk about what subsidiarity is in the church teachings. Jess?
There's an old saying that goes, idle time is the devil's workshop.
Oh, yeah. That's been around.
And that's what you have. You have a lot of these young guys that don't work. They're smoking pot every day. They dropped out of high school. They don't have a job. And these guys are as strong as horses. They're young. They're full of testosterone. And guess what you're going to do with all that youthful energy? If it's not being channeled in the right things, trust me, you're going to get in trouble. And that's why these government housing projects have become a cesspool of gang activity and drug activity and prostitution.
Well said, Jesse. As a former cop, you saw it. Folks, we got to take a quick break. Then Gus and El Monte will go to you next. Don't forget to get the Meditations on the Passion of Christ DVD. You got Scott Hahn, you got Father Bill Casey, Tim Staples. It's an amazing meditation for Lent. We've got Passion Sunday coming up. Go ahead and call 877-526-2151. I'll repeat it, slow, Terry. 877-526-2151. We'll be right back.
This is Dr. Scott Hahn, and you are listening to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio.
We're not right versus left. We're right versus wrong. Truth has no color.
Amen.
And you're not going to get fake news here. You know, when you get free money, both sides are affected. We just talked about people that get free money through, through welfare. And let me just be honest with you. You have two types of poor people. So let me make a distinction. You have the deserving poor.
Yep.
I'll give you two right off the top of my head from the Bible, James 1:26, widows and orphans. I mean, there's others as well, but those are the deserving poor. Then you have the undeserving poor. This is Tommy the Toker, who's 19 years old, dropped out of high school, selling pot. The guy's as built as a horse, and he refuses to work. He watches pornography every day behind his computer with his pants down to his ankles. And the guy is as strong as a stallion. He refuses to work, doesn't want to go to school. That's the undeserving poor. Now, when you give money away for free, everybody's affected. It doesn't build the recipient up at all. It doesn't make him responsible. But also, it makes the government irresponsible. You know why? Because it's not the government's money. It's our money, the taxpayer money. And let me make this very personal, because the government doles out money like water. But let me make this very personal. How disciplined would your gambling be in the casino if all your losses are covered by future taxpayers? In other words, you go, I don't gamble, but I'm just saying, if you go gamble at a casino and all of a sudden everything that you're losing, you're saying, well, I don't care because I'm going to get more money from taxpayers to keep on gambling. So go ahead. You're going to gamble wildly because it's not your money. And so all your losses are going to be covered by other people. This is how free money it leads to disastrous decisions, because discipline is eliminated. And now there's no motivation to work to make yourself better. And this is what happens when a nation just gives out money like water. This is a nation that's on a course to self-destruction. And the only possible output of a system lacking any discipline is self-destruction. And that's why we need to return to a moral order. A moral order will also in turn turn into an economic order.
Well said. And, I want to mention something that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Since 1966, our country has spent $20 trillion helping the poor, the war on the poor, right, from the Johnson administration. Isn't it interesting that we have $20 trillion in debt, this country? I just find that fascinating. I mean, what have we gotten? If you look at the charts from the CatholicRC.org's website, we have a chart that poverty didn't go down, hardly any. Why? With $20 trillion? Why is that? I have my own opinion, but John in Madera, California, you want to jump in on this conversation? John, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Hello.
Hello, John.
I'm calling about the Section 8 comment earlier.
Yes, go ahead, John. I'm all ears.
I only recently left Section 8 housing,
Good
and
for you.
I've been
Good
on
for you.
Section 8 housing for years.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you what it was like when I was on Section 8 housing.
I'm all
I
ears.
was working 6 to 7 days a week.
Wow.
Initially I was working 7 days a week as a security guard.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got a job to my original occupation. I was trained in college. I'm college educated
Good.
in journalism. So I was
Great.
working 6 days a week in journalism, and I was still in Section 8 because it doesn't pay that well. The rent cost at full price would have been half my income, or
Unreal.
at some points it would actually have been more than half my income.
Wow.
And so Section 8 housing, I was not doing drugs. I was working 6 to 7 days a week.
Good for you.
And I was a professional, white-collar professional.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't paint everybody who's on Section 8 with the same brush. And also there was no drug use, no problems in the housing I was in. I was actually in a regular apartment complex, but required by law, some of the apartments in that complex were dedicated to Section 8 housing. So it's not
good for you, John. We applaud you.
You're a hardworking man. You're a hardworking man.
Yeah. Well, let me mention something that I know statistically. Number one, as a retired Los Angeles deputy sheriff, generally speaking, there's more crime in Section 8 housing, okay? I'll tell you something on a personal experience. I used to go to a parish in Pacoima, California for 10 years that's in Section 8 housing, the projects. You talk to my pastor who's been there for 10 years, constantly, gunshots every night. He says it's hard to sleep. Police always knocking at the door. Twice my pastor at Guardian Angel Church had to run out of Holy Mass, give anointing of the sick right in front of the church to young men that had been shot. As an ex-cop, I can tell you, the housing projects in all LA County have the highest crime rates. That doesn't mean that there's not good people like you in there. Thanks be to God, there is good people. And in fact, statistically speaking, about 3% of the population commits 90% of the crime. And unfortunately, a lot of that 3% of the population seems to find their way into free government housing. Are there good people in there? Absolutely. 97% of them are great, decent American people like yourself. And I applaud you for lifting yourself out of your bootstraps and working yourself out of that situation. God bless you, John. Good job.
But Section 8 housing is not a completely free ride. At least it was not for me. My rent was reduced significantly, but I still had to pay
and that's good. Yeah,
half the amount of the normal rent.
Yeah, that's the way it works. I agree with you on that. You don't get it 100%. John, thanks for your call. We appreciate you making that effort to call in and clarify your situation. Congratulations on where you're going, brother. You're a man that I love hearing those stories. Folks, you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. We just got a couple minutes left. I want to remind everybody, Holy Week is coming up. I'm promoting the Meditations on the Passion of Christ because without Good Friday, there's no Easter Sunday. Doug Barry, Scott Hahn, Father Bill Casey, Tim Staples, Dr. All these good speakers are on that DVD. It's free. You just pay the shipping by calling 877-526-2151. Those of you who didn't hear me say about a Catholic care package, I said, how many of us have friends that have left the church? Raise your hand. Everybody, right? So here's what I'm doing. I'm sending a Catholic care package of about $100 worth of CDs and DVDs that should touch your friend who's left the church, bring them back to church, but you're the link in the chain. I need you to call 877-526-2151 to send that care package to whoever it is. They'll never know it was you, but here's the beauty of it. They don't know. And when they listen to these CDs, they don't have to, defend themselves. You're not there. Nobody's there except the CD or the DVD. I've found very effectively over the years, I'm the founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Over 30 million recordings have gone out in 39 years. This is one beautiful way to reach out to a fallen away Catholic. Call 877-526-2151. I'd love to be that link in the chain of bringing a soul back to Christ.
There's a great article that we're leaning on. It's called When Money is Free, Discipline Evaporates. And think about it. Let's just use some common sense. Whatever is free is squandered. Okay? For example, when water is free, it's freely wasted. When electricity is free, there's no motivation to use it wisely. You leave the lights on, you leave the fan running when you leave. And the same principle holds true for money. If money's free or nearly free, there's no motivation to invest in it wisely or consider the opportunity cost of spending it versus investing it or preserving it as savings. In other words, money that can be borrowed for next to nothing is essentially free because the costs of interest are negligible. And money that can be borrowed in virtually unlimited quantities is also free, as whatever funds are squandered or lost to malinvestment can be easily replaced with more borrowed money. And in this instance, I'm criticizing the government, the wasteful government. And we've seen our national government, they've had poor results in especially the last 8 years. Why? Because, they say, hey, our income is free because the taxpayer, they're the ones that are pouring money every month and so our national government, they can simply borrow another $1 trillion or, hey, $10 trillion. Why not? You know what? All they have to do is wait for more tax revenues. And so the fact of the matter is, every single one of us is called to be frugal. Every single one of us is called to be wise stewards. And this is the danger when we don't know our Catholic faith. The Bible says in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 10, the love of money is the root of all evil. And also one of the 7 deadly sins is this: avarice and greed. And I'm mentioning this, I'm pointing our fingers at our government, and also I'm pointing our fingers at ourselves as Americans. We seem to live beyond our means.
We only have 2 minutes left, but I'm going to ask Jesse to really make a good statement on what subsidiarity is, because the church is teaching that teaching, and it fits right in, because the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. That's what subsidiarity is. And by the way, before I pass it on, tomorrow, Jesse's going to be out of town again. Steve Ray will be my guest. And if you remember last Friday, he has some great information to give us. Jess, we just have a minute left. And before I do that, don't forget, everybody, pick up that DVD, Meditations on the Passion of Christ, with Doug Barry and all the others, by calling 877-526-2151. Jesse, subsidiarity is basically supporting what we're teaching, but it's the official church teachings. What is subsidiarity for the benefit of those who are listening?
If you want to read it for yourself, 1883 of the Catechism, 1885. Here's what it says, okay?
Yep.
The principle of subsidiarity, according to which a community of a higher order should not interfere in the internal life of a community of a lower order. The principle of subsidiarity is opposed to all forms of collectivism. By the way, that's a code word for socialism.
Yep.
It says the principle of subsidiarity sets limits for state intervention. Did you catch that? In other words, it basically is saying this: we should allow things to function at the smallest units, because the smaller, the better. The smaller the government, the more freedom a citizen has. The larger the government, the less freedom you and I have. That's the principle of subsidiarity.
Wow, thank you, Jesse. Folks, we'll be back again with Steve Ray tomorrow. I want you to take advantage of all of our free giveaways. If you heard Dr. Mazel yesterday and you still want to get his DVD on the Crusades, you can call 877-526-2151. Pick up Meditations on the Passion of Christ at the same time. May God really bless you and your family. God love you.